Bibliophiles of the internet, my name is Adri, and today I'm here to share some Sapphic Latina books. I wanted to make this video because I was inspired by the various Sapphic readathons happening this month. I might be a little bit late to help you out with those, but I still feel like because it's also Latinx Heritage Month, why not celebrate both things at once? But also, even if that's not relevant or you're watching this in the future and you just want to read some queer Latina books, you're still in the right place. As always, this is not meant to be a definitive or exhaustive list. I am not going to cover every single Sapphic Latinx book in existence because I can't do that, but hopefully you're still able to discover some new books. To start off, I want to briefly mention the We Set the Dark on Fire duology by Taylor K. Mejia. I'm not going to go into detail on this one because I actually recommended it fairly recently in my last TikTok book recs video, which I will link down below. I don't want to repeat myself, so you can watch that video to see my recommendation, or you can look it up on your bookish website of choice. I'm also going to once again briefly mention The Air You Breathe by Francis de Pontes Beebles, which I just enthusiastically recommended in my last video. I didn't want to leave it out, but again, I didn't want to repeat myself from just last week, so that video will also be down below as well. With that said, the first book I want to properly tell you about is Mangos and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera. If you're looking for queer Afro-Latinx romance, you really can't do much better than Adriana Herrera. This is her sapphic holiday novella about a Dominican pastry chef named Quisqueya who's just landed in Scotland so that she can compete in the Holiday Baking Challenge. It's a televised baking competition that's basically the fictional equivalent of the Great British Bake Off, and she gets paired with Sully, who's a much more free-willing, alternative, self-taught chef who's hoping that this competition will give her a renewed sense of purpose. Their incredible bakes are not the only thing heating up between the two of them, so the question becomes, will they be distracted by their partnership, or can they keep their eyes on the prize? I know it's not quite the holiday season yet, but I think this is good to read any time of year, because on the one hand, it's a fun, steamy, tropey sapphic novella that ticks off everything you want in a good adult romance, but it's also so much more than that. The story also comments on immigrant mentalities and the instinct to assimilate in order to find quote-unquote success. These characters are polar opposites in their mentalities and their beliefs, and that contrast is what actually ends up elevating their skills, their bakes, and their teamwork. It's everything you want in like 150 pages max. I definitely recommend it. Similarly, I believe she also has like a steamy sapphic Santa novella, if you're into that, called Her Night with Santa, which is basically like minimum plot, maximum smut kind of thing. So there's also that. Next, I want to talk about The Grief Keeper by Alexandra Villasante. This is a YA contemporary sci-fi story about Marisol, who is illegally immigrated from El Salvador to the United States. Now she and her younger sister have been caught and their request for asylum has been denied, but she's offered one last chance at a visa if she takes part in a groundbreaking experiment. Basically, American scientists have developed a new kind of technology that allows one person to take on someone else's PTSD and trauma. Not only would the experiment's failure be a death sentence for Marisol and her sister, but things get even more complicated when she starts falling for the test subject. Definitely check the content warnings on this one. It is a challenging story that doesn't shy away from racism, trauma, mental health, fear, violence, or injustice. But I also appreciate its honesty and how it sheds light on the ways that immigrants and other vulnerable communities have historically been used as fodder for the United States. The concept of immigrants and BIPOC communities being used willingly, or in most cases unwillingly, as test subjects is a very real part of our history, and that's kind of why the speculative elements in the story work, because the truth is stranger and more horrific than fiction. It's a heartbreaking story, but there's also a tenderness to it, especially in the slow burn romance, and I think it's ultimately building towards a really powerful ending. So yeah, I think it definitely deserves to be in the mix. Next, I couldn't make this video without mentioning Cantoras by Carolina de Robertes. It's queer Latinx historical fiction set in Uruguay during the 1970s when the country was under a military dictatorship, and to be queer was illegal and punishable by imprisonment or worse. The story follows 5 different queer women who eventually find each other and realize that they need a place where they can just safely exist. So they find this isolated stretch of beach called Cabo Polonio that they claim for themselves. Throughout the years, as they are tested by their families, lovers, and society itself, they always make time to go back to that place where they can be free and together without worrying about what anyone else thinks. Cantoras is a literary altar to queer women and queer desire and the inherent beauty and complexity of those experiences. It's such an amazing testament to the radical act of making space for yourself in ways that are both big and small, and how existence is resistance. I will link my review video for this book down below because if you've been around, you know that I will take any chance I get to recommend Carolina de Robertes, but if you take nothing else from this list, just know that Cantoras is one of the best. Then we also have Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. This is the first book in the Brooklyn Brujas trilogy. It's about Alex, who's the most powerful Bruja Bruja in a generation, but she absolutely hates her magic. At her death day celebration, she tries casting a spell to get rid of it entirely, but the spell backfires and goes horribly wrong, and her entire family vanishes. Then she has to embark on a journey through a sort of spirit world with her best friend Rishi and another Brujo to try and get them back. I want to be clear and say that Alex is very much bisexual. I'm not interested in erasing that part of her identity, and she's definitely caught between this Brujo named Nova and her best friend Rishi throughout the entire series. But from what I know, I believe the endgame is ultimately sapphic. I think this book is definitely worth reading because it's doing so many interesting things. It's urban fantasy, it has brujeria, it takes you through a fantasy world that is decidedly non-European, it celebrates an interracial romance between two girls of color. There's a lot to like. I also really appreciate the commentary on how Alex attempting to banish an important part of herself means that she would be forsaking her family and her history, and how the story shows that those things are deeply and inextricably connected. It's a fast-paced and unique fantasy adventure that definitely belongs on this list. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabi Rivera. This is about a Puerto Rican lesbian named Juliet who's moving across the country for the summer from the Bronx to Portland so that she can intern for Harlow Brisbane, a notable author, artist, and feminist. Right before she leaves, Juliet decides to come out to her family, and it does not go great. So now as she's starting her internship, she's struggling to find her place in Oregon and to find where she truly belongs, and she's also starting to wonder if she can figure out all her family problems before the summer ends. Above everything else, I love this story for the way it challenges the pervasive toxicity and centering of whiteness, not only in many spaces, but specifically in queer spaces, and how that barrier keeps so many young BIPOC folks from being able to see themselves in queerness. The story focuses on white feminism especially, and how it's not created with people like Juliet in mind, from the way it privileges white bodies and white voices, or creates a sense of isolation through gatekeeping, theory, and even language. It's about Juliet forcibly carving out a space for herself to exist, coming to embrace her queer Latina identity and her brownness, and just finding and holding on to queer joy no matter what. And the last book I want to mention is one that's actually on my own TBR, and that's Prize Money by Celeste Castro. This author is Mexican-American and writes what she calls lesbian-themed fiction. This is like a queer Western romance about Eva Angeles, who is a professional award-winning barrel racer, but a malfunction mid-competition throws her in the path of a bull running loose. At the last second, she is saved by a handsome equestrian stuntwoman turned bullfighter named Toma, who rescues fallen rodeo riders as part of the family business. Something sparks between the two of them in that moment, but while Eva plans to continue competing, it seems like Toma wants to get back into working on movie sets, and they have to figure out if they can somehow make this relationship work. I get that Western is a very loose classification for this kind of story because it's not exactly about cowboys and the Old West, but I still kind of love that it exists. It's nice to see more, again, quote-unquote, Western stories with Latina characters finding themselves, finding joy, finding romance, and finding purpose. This just sounds like a delightful romance to me. I've seen it pop up here and there on my feed, and I know it's from a smaller press as well, so if you're interested, I hope you really do look into it. Very quickly, I have 3 honorable mentions I haven't personally read that I'm just gonna list off real quick. First, there's The Summer of Jordi Perez, which I didn't include in the video proper because I believe the titular Latina character is the love interest. I believe one of the narrators in Clap When You Land is also queer and in a sapphic sort of situation, and I think one of the sisters in Fire with Fire is bisexual and has a female love interest as well. So all of those books with sapphic Latina characters also exist. In the comments down below, let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you plan to, or if you know of any more sapphic Latina books. Feel free to keep the conversation going and drop those recommendations. But that's everything I had to share for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.